Kristen, Balboni, Thomas Davis here with Panthers GM Dan Morgan. Dan, congratulations on a great draft. I want to get right into it. So you received acclaim from all of the media outlets after the draft, including Pro Football Focus giving you an A+. I'm guessing you don't care too much about that, but what I want to know is how did this draft align with what you wanted going into it?
Yeah, I think going into it, we wanted to add playmakers and guys that we felt would help us offensively and defensively, and I think it lined up really well. Especially with our first-round pick. Just a big, long target who catches everything outside his frame, and then just like adding some really good defensive talent, 2 edge rushers that we're really excited about. So I think it lined up really good for us.
Dan, with the first round pick, there were a lot of mock drafts that had us selecting edge rushers, in particular Jalen Walker out of Georgia with that first pick. When and why did you decide that Ted McMillan would be our guy? Like, at what point? Because we know he received a little negative press at some point throughout the draft process, but at what point did you know, without a doubt, this was our guy?
Yeah, I just think when we had the opportunity to add a playmaker like Ted, I think we had the strike. And I felt like he was a difference maker. I felt like he was a guy that could really help our offense, change our offense. And, and it's no offense to any of those other edge rushers, but with a talent like Ted, the frame that he has, the hands that he has, the run after catch, the body control that he has, we just felt like we couldn't pass up on that talent.
You called him your guy. Somebody else that was very high on him is my co-host right here.
Oh, yeah.
Take a look at this clip.
That's why I wanted to know. When did you make the decision? Because this is what I did.
He made it in January. Watch this.
I made it pretty early, too, to be honest with you.
You got a guy. We talked about the receiving core. We love what's going on there. But if you have a chance to draft a guy that's 6'5", that has a catch radius out of this world, that has an ability to run by people and stretch the field, that absolutely loves the game of football. And you can tell by watching Arizona play, Ted McMillan is a kid that brings so much energy and so much excitement to the game. I think, Dan Morgan, that he would look amazing in the Carolina Panther black and blue.
You think he's going to be there in the draft?
I doubt if he'd be there, but I'm praying that he is.
That was in January?
Yes. I mean, there was a little fist bump as we watched this,
That's
by
crazy.
the way. How funny is that?
That's pretty cool.
Same page, huh?
TD knows ball, so.
Man, great minds think alike, Dan. That's what I keep telling people, man. That's how it goes.
That's pretty funny, man. It's crazy how things work out, man.
You watch that kid play, and you see it. You see the excitement. You see the energy. You see him just time and time again, every week he still put up big numbers. And when you see that from a kid, that tells you that, hey, doesn't matter how you scheming, it doesn't matter how many cover twos, whatever you decide that you want to do to try to cover him up over top, he still finds ways to make things happen week in and week out on Saturdays. So I'm excited to have him.
And everybody knew, the ball was coming to him, and he was still making plays out there. So we're excited to have him.
So you guys have nothing but great things to say about him. So then what are the expectations starting next season, early next season, I imagine, for him, for the Panthers?
Yeah, just, come in, earn your stripes, right? We've all been rookies coming into the league, and you want to come in, you want to work your butt off, you want to get under a guy like Adam Thielen, guys that have been in the league and been successful. So I think he just needs to come in and do that and just get in line.
So Dan, one of the things that I will say that you did agree with the mock drafts on was that we needed some help on the edge. And you did address that area with back-to-back picks in the second and third round. You went out and got 2 SEC guys. You went out and got Nick and you got Princely. What are some of the things that impressed you about those guys? What do you feel like they bring to the table?
So Nick, he's transferred from Purdue, Purdue to Texas A&M. It's just a guy that's like really physical. He can get off the rock. He has twitch. He can beat you with speed or power. And then you look at Princely. Princely has that bend and that speed off the edge that we were looking for. And then he has an arsenal of moves too that he can beat you with. So those are two guys that they're going to come in, they're going to be in the rotation, they're going to help us out right away, and I think they're both going to make a real big impact for us. And not only that, they're culture guys for us too. Like, they're tough, they're smart guys, and they're going to be able to intertwine with the defense and with the other guys on the defense right now and make us better.
So would you say that those are some of the dogs that you referenced
Yeah.
in your presser?
Yeah. I think we got a few of those this draft. So
No question. So
Yeah.
also, Dan, when you look at Nick, I know a lot of people kind of fell off for him a little bit because of the production drop. You know, when he was at Purdue, he played more of a stand-up outside linebacker type, which he would be playing in this defense. And I was encouraged and excited because if you watch some of the film of him on Texas A&M, when he made his biggest plays, he was standing up and he was rushing off the edge, doing some of those things. Is that one of the reasons why you decided to pull the trigger on him and watching that film on him, knowing what he did at Purdue, also being able to see what he was able to do standing up for Texas A&M?
Yeah, it's huge. You're exactly right. Just like looking at him at Purdue, and then same thing at Texas A&M. When he's up and he's in a 2-point stance, he's getting off the rock, and like he shows you the explosiveness and the moves that he has on the outside. So hopefully he brings that here. I know he will, and we're excited about him.
You also got Cam Jackson. You know, as you build depth, Derek Brown is coming back. So where do you think this D-line is, maybe even in comparison to last season, the beginning of last season?
Yeah, I feel like we really upgraded the D-line, you know, not only from a talent standpoint, but from a size standpoint. So, you know, you add a guy like Bobby Brown, you know, and drafting Cam this year. Those are two really big dudes along Ashawn Robinson and Derek Brown. And, you know, we couldn't stop the run last year. So to add guys like that, size like that, we're not going to be pushed around up front like we were last year.
Dan, all of our starting linebackers at the end of the season ended up going down, and we were struggling at the end of the season when it came to the linebacker position, yet we didn't draft one in this year's draft. Are you excited about where we are at linebacker position, or is that something that you're going to continue to work on as the offseason continues?
I think, you know, we're going to continue just like looking in general at every position and just try to get better across the board. But I do feel good about Josie and then Trevin's progression last year. They're two guys that we trust and we feel like we can count on. And then, you know, Claude Charles behind them is another really good player and a guy that we think is ascending and can be a really good player for us. So I feel good about that. I feel good about the D-line in front of them, keeping them clean, and they'll be able to run sideline to sideline and make plays.
Dan, so we talked about the linebackers. Another position that we feel like we had to work on and we had to strengthen was the safety position. Yeah. And you went out and got a guy that has proven to be a winner. He's the national champion from Ohio State. Latham Ransom is a kid that I feel like is very, very physical. He plays the game the right way. He comes downhill and he gets the job done. What were some of the things that stood out about him that made you feel like he was the right guy for that room?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you know, he's just a physical guy, you know, a guy that's going to come down into the box. He's not afraid to fill the gap and nail a running back in the hole. But he's also a guy that can play deep, you know, deep coverage. He's really smart. He's a really good communicator and a guy that really fits the kind of culture that we're trying to create here.
Then also, you got some great value in the offensive picks, too. Pick up Trevor Etienne, Mitchell Evans, and then a guy that a lot of people are talking about, Jimmy Horn Jr. What did you see in those guys as they became available to you?
Yeah, I mean, Etienne, he was a guy that we really liked. First of all, like the value that he brings in the pass game. He's also a really good runner, but he's a dual returner as well. So he's a guy that's going to be able to, you know, help us in the return game, which we've kind of struggled with. Mitchell Evans is a guy that we really liked. He's a good inline blocker, but he's also a really good receiver. You know, maybe doesn't get as much separation as you would like, but he has really good ball skills and knows how to position his body. And then Jimmy Horn at the end, you know, another punt returner. You know, he can return punts, he can return kickoffs, and then he's got that juice that can, you know, he can go deep and he can make plays. And then he's also really good with the ball in his hands after the catch and as a returner. So we feel like we added a dynamic player right there.
So versatility with all three of those guys sounds like a huge thing there.
And then we added Hunter Renfrow, like you know, just adding that. Listen, this is the deepest receiver room that we've had in a very, very long time. So I'm definitely excited about that competition because people really have to understand what competition does. It makes everybody in the room better. It's not only is going to make the receivers better, but it's going to make the DBs better, having to constantly go against that caliber of talent week in and week out.
Exactly, and that's what we want to do at every position on the roster is just add as much depth and competition because to your point, it brings out the best in everybody.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for taking the time. Hopefully you can go and get some rest now. Although I know a GM never, their role never gets to sleep, but we really appreciate you taking the time for us.
Anytime.